Hi, everybody. It's Gertrude Mache again here in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand. I decided to come outside just to tease all my North American friends who are in below zero temperatures that this is our fall. We're
Oh,
having an absolutely stunning day today, so I'm outside just taking it easy. Kate, nice to see you there. Welcome to the webinar. So I promised my speaking community that we would be providing all kinds of training and workshops and webinars to empower you to get on stage. And I would like to introduce a fascinating lady. If you missed the last webinar we just did, Charlene Jones is coming to me all the way from Canada. And Charlene, say hi to everybody. Just give us an introduction of who you are before we start.
first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I had so much fun in the last hour, and I know this is going to be even better. Secondly, my name is Charlene Jones, and I have been pegged to be the one on stage since I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten, and the principal met with my mother, and they said, could she do the Lord's Prayer on November 11th, on Remembrance Day? And my mother said to me, can you do that? And I said, I think I can do that. And she said, oh no, if she says she can do it, she can do it. So there was about 300 to 400 people gathered. The parents came and the children. It was a small school.
Keep going.
You've gone away.
I'm here.
Okay, that's fine.
So
then, as I was walking up onto the podium to where the microphone was, I felt this huge wave of energy. And I thought in my head, why did no one tell me about this wave? I thought everybody knew that when you stand on stage, you're going to get energy because people are looking at you. And I didn't realize that nobody had actually done that or thought about it, or that was not something that was within their perceptual experience. So I started off and I did the Lord's Prayer, and I did it without any problem. And that was the beginning. And from then on, it seems like every time there's somebody who has to get at a microphone, people look at me, she's going to do it.
You were born to speak. You were born to speak. My experience is that my mother said that I talked before I walked. I was a late walker. My parents actually thought I was disabled. I didn't walk until I was almost a year old. My mom said I used to crawl everywhere, and they actually thought I had a disability, but because I talked so much, they knew I was fine.
You were just going to talk your way through the world, and look, you're doing it. Look at you, you're doing it.
And
the whole world.
They say that when you can tap into your intuitive gifts, it's no longer work. And
exactly.
That has been the story of my life. Since I became a professional speaker, I have traveled to 56 countries, speaking and inspiring women, men in business, in life. And it's like the air that I breathe. Like you can see, we've been going, this is our second webinar, and I still have a third one to do before the day is over. But this isn't work for me. This is something that I do that gives me a lot of pleasure and a lot of energy. And you are right. When you get up on stage, if you're not prepared, there is a wave of energy that does hit you. And it's a magical space to work from. I love it. It energizes me. It inspires me. So let me welcome a few people who've come back online. Dorothy, nice to see you again in Dallas. Marilyn, I'm not sure where you're from, but please put your locations in the chat window. There's Leslie. I know Claire is coming back to us from New Mexico. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So we are going to focus on how we're going to get your presentation from the page you've written the speech till you get on stage in front of a microphone. Where do we start, Charlene? Take it over.
Well, thank you. I just recently did a small workshop with about 11 or 12 people, and the first thing I did was have them stand up and walk around the room and start humming. But they have to keep eye contact. And I want to give you all these little tricks and things to do, because you might get a couple of your girlfriends together, or friends together, a neighbor, and just try it.
Okay.
You have to keep eye contact and make a humming noise. So you do that for 2 or 3 minutes. And then I ask you to make the noise louder and smaller. So you're starting to play with volume. And then I ask them to vary where it was coming from in their bodies. Make it low, make it high, change it up. You start to move so that you understand this is actually an instrument. The same as a woodwind instrument, an oboe, for example, a flute.
Yes.
So then as people were walking around, I said to them, now that you can do that, I want you to sing a single note. They were very quiet about that. They sang very, very softly, but they did. And I'm a big singer. I'll just belt out a sound because I love to sing. And I don't know that I'm good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's just a joyful thing to me. So they were very quiet and very subtle. And that was fine. And then they were kind of looking at each other. They didn't really know what they got themselves into. And then I went to the microphone. And I said, because once you understand that the microphone is just an extension of what you just did, and you understand that you are using this, expanding your voice, bringing it down into your body, making it into your head, louder, quieter, whatever it is that you need to do to call the emphasis. And it's just a very simple couple of tricks. You can get there from those exercises. So then I went to the microphone itself, and I always like to say, I have never found a microphone I didn't like. I love microphones. They are all different, though.
Yes.
And this is something, again, right? You would know this, Gertrude.
Mm-hmm.
Gertrude, that it's not the same. And so what you do, and this was taught to me by a wonderful person in Toronto, Nikki Ward, who said, when you watch a comedian go on stage, what do? They'll move the microphone around. They'll start at one end of the stage and walk across. They'll move their stool. They'll just pick it up and start moving it.
Yes.
If you're Ellen DeGeneres, you just keep moving back and forth and looking at the audience for the longest time. Now, why do you do that? You do that because you're taking command of the physical space.
Okay.
So to the extent to which you want to feel more comfortable, if you're feeling nervous, you can. Some people don't. They just get right up and get to the microphone and away they go. But if you want to take a moment to gather your sense of empowerment while you were on stage, then you can take a moment.
Yes.
And you take the moment, you can fix the microphone, play with it. I also suggest putting a few words into the microphone. So you might say, hello, it's been wonderful to be invited here. I'm so happy, and maybe say a word about the weather. And what you're doing is testing your voice in that microphone. Okay.
So before you launch into your speech, just test it first.
Just test it. Okay. Because you're going to be both speaking and listening at the same time. Okay. And if you're very new to microphones, that becomes a little confusing.
Yes. Yes.
Because we're not used to hearing ourselves through a microphone until we've done it a few times.
Okay. Now let me share what I have done in the past in terms of my preparations before I speak. I had spoken in small groups. The largest audience in New Zealand was about 2,000 people. And I had an opportunity for the first time to speak in front of 10,000. Now I'm sharing the story because a lot of the women who are participating in the HerStory Women's Empowerment Conference have never spoken before. And one of my mentors is Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup of the Soul. Yeah. And I happened to be in a workshop with him, and I said, Jack, I am so nervous. I've spoken in front of 2,000 people, but 10,000, I don't know what to do. And he told me a few tricks that have changed my life. He said to me, Gertrude, get to the venue before you speak and walk around the room. Get familiar with the space. Then go on stage and stand in front of the microphone and look into the audience where the audience would be. And try and find the person who is on the last seat at the back of that hall. And when you are speaking on stage, remember there is somebody sitting out there. You might not see them, but at some point in your presentation, you need to look up. You need to project as if you're seeing them. Yes. And then he said, go to the last seat and sit in that seat and look
Ah,
down on stage
fabulous.
and see how it would feel if it was you in this massive conference with 10,000 people and you're in the last seat in the room. Is that speaker going to be able to remember that I'm here?
Yes.
So that's what I do to prepare. I go to the venue early. I walk around the room. I get a feel of what it's like. And then when I start to speak, I remember that if you've spoken in front of 20 people, break the room up into 20 people lots. Turn to your left and tell yourself there's 20 people here. There's 20 people there. There's 20 here. There's 20 there. There's 20 here. And you work the audience in lots of 20. If your biggest audience was 500 people, it's 500 here, 500 there, etc., etc. So you work the room in the small lots of the last biggest presentation you gave, because that's all it is. 10,000 people as opposed to 10 people is just small lots of 10 people in the room.
That's right.
So that can really empower you if you've never spoken on stage.
Yes.
To also realize that although it's a big number, they're just ordinary people like you and me. Mm-hmm. And my father was my biggest inspiration. My dad was the person who gave me the self-confidence to speak. And he would say to me, Gertrude, if it gets really scary, I was in high school doing debates and public speaking. He said, imagine everybody in the front row with no clothes on and sitting on a toilet seat.
Yes.
They will be in the loo, in the toilet, because everybody goes to the toilet.
That's right.
And it just humanized my audiences wherever I spoke. When I was a kid, I was fearless. I would just remember what my father said, and the people in the front row were all naked and they were sitting on the loo, and it gave me that much more confidence to get up and do my thing.
That's
so those are a few preparation tips, ladies and gentlemen, for when you're going to get out there and you're going to speak.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that you have to take charge of the stage. Let's go into a little bit more detail what you mean by that.
If you are grounded in your own body, and by that I mean it's a very simple grounding experience. You just go into your feet. You just imagine yourself, you're in your feet. You can do that right now so you know what you're doing with your mind and feel inside your feet. Mm-hmm. You walk on stage and you do that. Because you see, that's grounding. That's grounding you into the actual platform or whatever it is that you're standing on. It is your body that is your transmission. Mm-hmm. It's your receiver and sender. It's not actually your head. The body is what's going to actually take that wave of energy and attention and allow you to move with it and stay open to it. Mm-hmm. And so taking charge of the stage to me is also about saying, I'm going to be here and breathe in such a way that I can allow this number of people. It could be 5 people. Yes. It could be, as you say, huge numbers, doesn't matter. There's a way in which the body knows how to embrace the experience. And to me, this is extremely important if I'm at stage. It's a vulnerability. Yes. I will tell you that I always feel very vulnerable when I do the best in terms of being at the microphone. If I'm reading my work, my poetry, if I'm reading my prose, I have to remember to stay deeply grounded in my body and deeply connected to whatever that space is with the microphone.
Yes.
I hope that.
Now that's really helpful to remember. One of the things that I have learned to do, and this actually came from an experience I had speaking at a conference in Mexico. I went to this conference and I was very, very unsure. I was scared. One of my friends said to me, Gertrude, it would be fantastic if you opened your speech in Spanish. So I emailed her just the opening paragraph of my speech. And fortunately, phonetically, Spanish and my mother tongue sound exactly the same. I have a language that has a lot of R's that just roll off your tongue. My dialect is called Karanga. And I read what she sent me back, and literally from the airport to the venue, she corrected a few things, and I got up on stage in front of 3,000 people, and I opened my presentation in Spanish. And then, of course, I went into English.
You have the courage of a lion, my friend. That is amazing.
But what happened was the technology failed. My PowerPoint presentation and my computer didn't connect. And there's all these people in front of me, and I didn't know what to do. And I normally meditate before I present. Mm-hmm. So I quickly went inward and I asked, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And the guidance I got was to take off my shoes and to physically ground myself. I became the barefooted speaker because of that. So I go to these huge international conferences and I speak barefoot. And what happened was it stabilized me inside. I became so connected with the stage, with the ground I was standing on, and something took over. I'll be honest with you, Charlene, I channeled one of the best speeches I have ever given. And I remember at the end of that speech, people coming and asking me to write down a quotation of something I said, and I could not remember. Yes, I had to watch the video and listen back, and it blew me away. I have no idea where this wisdom came from. Yes. But because I had an essence of what I wanted to say, I got out of the way and delivered the most authentic presentation I've ever given. And that's one of the programs I'm going to be teaching all the speakers. I have a program called Speaking from the Heart, where you prepare as much as you can, you memorize as much as you can, but you go on stage and you deliver like you have never given that speech before. And what happens is that your content becomes so original every single time you speak. So in New Zealand, I have a group of women who are like my groupies. They hear that I'm speaking somewhere and they come. They're mostly elderly women. And every time they come, they bring a friend or two friends. And they think I'm going to give the last speech I gave the last time, but I can't do that because I can't remember what I said. And sometimes they're so disappointed because they wanted me to tell a specific story. Yes. But that's not my process. That's not how I work. So that's another way that you can get yourself grounded. If it means that you go on stage, you take off your shoes, and you walk around before the presentation or speak without shoes, it's a very, very powerful way to just get back into your body, get back into yourself, and then deliver.
It is. And, you know, to your point about this spontaneity and what is going to happen in your consciousness, and how, to me, that is speaking to the room. That's why you find your space at the microphone, because you're speaking to that room. It doesn't matter how many times you've given whatever that speech is, or if you've never given it before. You are actually talking to each of those psyches in a particular way. They are each going to hear it slightly differently. And if you are open to it, and the room is the right room, and it may not happen over 3,000, or it may, you can actually direct, something will come right out of you to the people, to a particular person who's maybe in the first row or maybe at the back of the room. And it sounds like it's seamlessly part of your intention, but it's actually a moment when those people and you connected. I hope that isn't too esoteric, but I'm trying to say
no. It's very true, because I've had people who say, Gertrude, it's like you were speaking to me.
Exactly.
And that's what happens when this force takes over. One of the things that I say before I speak is I ask my higher self, how may I serve? How can I be of service to the people in the room? And one of the other things that I've done in the past is, in getting myself ready, like I said earlier, I go into a meditative state. Even if it's a 5-minute meditation, it quietens your mind. It just brings you down to a point where you can connect in a very, very authentic way.
That's exactly it.
So let's move on to the next thing here. And some of the things we're going to say may sound very obvious, like the next one, But sometimes the most obvious things are the most difficult things to do when you're nervous.
Yes.
The next point is breathe. Take it away, Charlene. Tell us, how do you breathe when you're on stage?
Well, I will tell you that we are all on stage constantly breathing. And I'll tell you that the number one epidemic in the world right now is that people stop breathing. And they stop breathing when they're concentrating.
Yes.
And the more they concentrate, the more they stop breathing. And this is connected, of course, to anxiety and depression and all of the things that roll out, because after a while, you just stop breathing. So one of the things I do in my daily life is I'll be talking with someone and I'll say, start breathing, please. You stop breathing. They go, how do you know? Well, because if you stop breathing, I stop breathing.
Yes.
So the thing to do when you are coming to the microphone is make sure you take a couple of those breaths.
Yes.
Because what you're saying to yourself is, I belong here. I have the right to be here. Mm-hmm. If you do not take that moment, you may end up talking from a higher, in terms of physically, a different place in your body.
Yes.
And you may not have the same sense of the empowerment of what it is that you have really got to give, because you have something to give.
Yes.
This is the real truth. You have something to give that nobody else has.
And that's why you're on stage. That's why you're inspired to speak.
And that is it. And so when you breathe, you say to every cell in your body, it is my gift and I want to give that gift. The same as when you do your meditation. You can do the meditation, but then you breathe into that, breathing the air into the lower lungs if you can do it. If you can't, that's fine. It's just the chest, that's fine.
Yes.
But you're remembering. And then what that remembrance does as well is allow you to continue to breathe as you speak.
Okay.
And when you begin to breathe as you speak, you allow everyone in the room
to breathe as well.
To breathe as well.
Yeah. Wow. And not being afraid to have silence. So a lot of people will start and just launch straight into their speech because they feel uncomfortable being in the spotlight. And I love what you said earlier, that you have to remember that you are the star. They're there to listen to you. They'll be looking at you. They'll be staring at you and taking you in. So savor that. Enjoy every single minute of it. Just the honor that you have to have people as your captive audience, as you share your knowledge and your skills with them. Enjoy it. And have those long pauses if you have to.
Yes.
They not only help you deliver, but they help people take in the information you're saying as well.
Exactly, Gertrude. That's exactly right. It helps their minds relax a little bit, and they don't feel quite so, we live so rushed. We're so rushed. So I did this thing when I was teaching. When I teach a workshop, I'd stand at the microphone and don't say anything.
Okay.
And I don't say anything.
Yes.
And I look at the audience, I don't say anything. I don't say anything for like 3 minutes. And then I say to them, how are you feeling? And they say, uncomfortable. Yeah. I say, well, that's okay. Now breathe and you'll be fine. All right. We just had a moment of silence. Please. It's not a big deal, right?
Oh, I love it.
Right? You actually, that's a gift you give people when you do a public speaking, is give them a moment, several beats of silence. And if you do that at the beginning, don't take it as far as I did. I was trying to make a point, of course. But give a few beats at the beginning of just silence, and it shows people you are not afraid. It is one of the ways that you teach yourself not to be afraid.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Because what if you get afraid? Sometimes what the fear is what if I get up there and I have nothing to say?
Yes.
And then I start fumbling and I don't know what to say So you kind of go right into that instead and say, well, okay, I'm going to head it off at the pass and just say nothing in the beginning for a beat or two.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, the next point we have here is about making the noises on stage. And I think you alluded to that a little bit earlier, correct? Do you want to compound on that or add more to that?
Well, it is just that same thing, is that if you have the opportunity to practice with a microphone, And I'm assuming you're not able to do yet what you do, Gertrude, and have thousands of people in the audience, but maybe you've got 5, 10, 15, maybe 20, 25 are coming to your workshop, whatever it may be. Get to the microphone when you're by yourself and make strange noises. Allow yourself to open up to vocal expression. Mm-hmm. Play with it the way children play.
Yes.
Allow yourself to have fun with this little instrument called the microphone. And if you experiment with it that way, it becomes part of you.
Yes.
Neurologically, it takes 20 minutes for our entire bodies to take on the shape of a new room, the shape of a new thing in front of us. So if you did have 20 minutes in front of a microphone before everybody got there, your neural patterns would already be including that microphone as part of your body pattern.
Okay.
And what a difference that makes when you go to talk to people, because you forget the microphone's there just the same way as you kind of forget that you are, do you know what I mean? You're focusing on what you're saying and sort of on how you're saying it, but there's a flow there.
I always say to people that I cannot sing to save my life, but I speak. And I get the sense when I'm on stage, I can hold people with the power of my voice. And it's the most magical thing. I've always wanted to be a singer. You know, I have 2 kids who are classically trained. My son is a baritone bass. My daughter is a soprano. And my kids are just so musical. And my youngest son is a jazz musician. He's my little Jimi Hendrix reincarnate. But I can't sing. But what I do is I speak. And I know when I'm on stage speaking, I am at my most powerful.
Yes. Yes, and that's a gift that you've given yourself, and now you're giving to other women, because it is one of the things we have got to do is be in our voice. Yeah. It is the point of authenticity.
So we're just going to dive into, why would you be a speaker? I don't call myself a public speaker. I don't call myself a motivational speaker. But I call myself an inspirational speaker. I speak to inspire. There's a difference between inspiration and motivation. And I have used my speaking as a vehicle to spread my message. So right now, I'm sitting in my garden in New Zealand. You guys are all over the world, you Mexico, Dallas. Charlene, you're in Canada. And we are connecting through this virtual platform called the internet. And you're all hearing my voice. We are actually giving a speech right now. Yes. So if you want your message to go much further than your front door, there are so many tools out there. And with the advent of the internet, the world is flat. I mean, this morning alone, I think I have spoken to people in 20 different countries from 3 o'clock this morning until now. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm still going. Yeah. So I use
no jet lag. I like that part of it. No jet lag.
No jet lag, exactly. So I use my speaking as a vehicle to spread my message, and I am trying to have an impact, a global impact, on as many women as possible before I die. And that's why I speak. Now, when you speak, it does help you have that impact. Like, I have some ideas that I want to share with other African women who are in the diaspora, that we need to go back to our villages, to our countries, to help family, friends, relatives in some way. And I could try and do it alone, but I know that there are 3 million Zimbabweans in the diaspora. We're scattered in the UK, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand. And we have people at home who need help. So that's what I do. That's the reason why I wake up every day and do what I do, is because I want to have an impact, especially around women and children, the elderly and the homeless. And that's what the HerStory conference is all about. We are a social impact conference where in each of the 1,000 locations, we're going to make a difference in some way. And we're going to team up with other people in other countries and make a difference there as well. Why else would you speak, Charlene? Tell me.
Because the power of language is transformative. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the power of the soul is what causes the transformation. And I don't usually know what I'm going to say until my mouth opens.
Mm-hmm.
I typically have to wait and be calm and then let it relax, and then it comes forward. I work often one-to-one with people, and they are relying on my language to help them come from the tangled place in their own bodies and their own hearts, to help them know that they have got a path, there is a way through.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much suffering in the human condition. And one of the ways that we do connect is through language and voice.
Hmm.
When we speak together, we defy alienation.
Hmm.
When we listen to each other, we defy alienation. It's no longer true. We are us. And when we are us, we come alive in a different way. And that being alive is the defeat of depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
lonely, feeling worthless, self-doubt, all of the things that people struggle with. We're at an incredibly powerful time in our history, but it's a complicated time, and it's causing a lot of stuff to come to the surface.
Yes.
That's poisonous. A lot of the poisons are coming to the surface. And so we see terrible things happening, and our hearts grieve. All our hearts grieve. And then our words come to speak to that grief, and that brings us together globally.
And I mean, a good example of that is what's just happened here in New Zealand with the mass shooting.
Exactly.
I mean, I was so affected. It has taken me, it really impacted on me. And I don't know anyone who was directly affected, but I know people who know one person who was. Like one of the ladies who is heading the conference in Christchurch, her little daughter or her son, I think, goes to the same preschool as the 3-year-old who was shot. And she was with that little boy the same day. She went and picked up her son early for some reason. She wasn't in that area. So when I hear stories like that, there is no way I cannot be affected. And you're right, because the outreach, the messages that I've had from people who know that I live in New Zealand, and it has been incredible how this has unified us in a very, very strange way. And I was saying to somebody the other day, because you were talking about us and we.
Yes.
My philosophy that I teach is called Ubuntu. It's an African philosophy that describes the condition of being human. That there's no you, there's no me, there's only we. And humanity has forgotten that we are one. We are not separated. The difference in how we look, the color of our skin, is 99.9% we are the same. When they finished sequencing the human genome, they found that every single human being on this planet is 99.9% the same. Our physical differences are a small fraction of that. And so you're talking about connection and the power of speech in connecting people. That's what you will be doing when you go up on stage. Now, for those of you who are trying to prepare your 3 presentations or the 4 presentation opportunities, some people have asked me, Gertrude, what do I talk about? I think if you focus on getting clear what impact you want to make in the world, everything else will stem from there. From your 5-minute presentation to your 10 to your 15.
Yes. And you can make that impact with a very funny story and build 5, 10, and 15 minutes of humor for people.
Yes.
I was telling someone just in Tuesday night, we had meditation here at the house. We do it every check. This woman, you know, when you are in a state of joy and bliss, you are fulfilling your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do much else.
Yes.
It's just, if you have
just
a little
be happy.
That's enough. Is it not enough? Please. We make it very complicated, and then we stumble over ourselves with it. But it is very true that you can make a funny, uplifting, you can tell stories. It doesn't have to be deep, profound, serious, heavy. intellectual. If you have those things and you love to play with them, I love to play with neuroscience. When you were saying the beautiful African word that says that it is we, it's not me, it's not you, it's we.
Mm-hmm.
That's what neuroscience is finding through these things called mirror neurons, which are at the front of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a French philosopher, Ponty, who says, I see me through the way you are.
Yes.
He just, no separation whatsoever. And mirror neurons are telling us that.
Mm-hmm.
That from the very earliest time, babies smile in response to the smiling faces to them.
Yes. My grandmother used to describe the condition of being human,
Yeah.
like the human race is like the human body.
Okay.
If I cut my finger and I start to bleed, my white blood cells will rush to that point to heal it. In a week's time, you can't even see the scar. So we are part of the same whole. So if one of us is not okay, it means we're all not okay.
Right.
And people have forgotten this. That's why we're so disjointed. I mean, when I look at this young man, in World War II, we talk about empathy, we talk about compassion, and we talk about connection. I started thinking, what got him to the point to be a mass murderer?
Yes.
What has happened in his life where
Yes.
he has not experienced empathy and kindness and connection? This is why this has happened.
Yes.
This young man probably has a very sad history.
Yes.
And when you get to understand that he is me,
Yes.
he's you, he's all of us. And there's
Yes.
something in our societies that has failed him for him to get
Yes.
to the point to do what he did.
Yes.
And in Africa, in ancient times, if somebody murdered someone, they would not be punished. There was no corporal punishment. The person will be taken to the village square, and
Yes.
every person who knows him would
Yes.
come and say something good about them.
Oh, wow.
They would be reminded of their goodness. There was no punishment in our systems in Africa. And so your goodness is given back to you by the people in the village and in the community.
They mirror that to you so that you become that again.
Because you've just forgotten.
That's it. You've forgotten. And this is the power, because they're saying those words.
Exactly.
They're using their voices to speak to this person who maybe fell off for a while and thought he was something else, or she was something else. So when you are a speaker, I believe that you've been chosen for that moment. You've been chosen by the people in that particular room, and that they have something to receive from you.
And they're not there by accident. It's not a coincidence. And what I've done in the past is I've been invited to speak at certain events, and the organizer was thinking they would get 500 people there and 20 people show up. And I have learned that it's not about 500 people. It's about the 20 who showed up. And I will go on stage and I will deliver as if there's 500 people in that room, and I will bare my soul and give them my all. And what I found is, out of those 20, it was the right 20. You could speak in a room with 500 people who don't get you.
That's right.
But you could speak in a room with 20 people who do, and amazing things will happen from there. So that's something I wanted everybody to remember about your presentations. Focus on the impact that you want to have in the world.
Yes.
And let that be the vehicle that you deliver your message in all 4 exposures of your presentations.
Know that you're never alone with that intention. When you have that intention, you now are you are connected to a higher energy. And I don't care how you perceive it, it's a higher energy. And allow that to be what you put over yourself and what you speak through.
And the other thing about this conference is that we are going to be curating all of the video material. Every single speech will be recorded. And what happens when you give a presentation that can be shared online is that it keeps going. You're going to get exposure over and over and over again. So you could give a speech once, but I have people who have found me through YouTube, and they've watched a video I did 10 years ago. And they'll say, I've just watched your presentation like it was yesterday, but I did it almost a decade ago. So it's timeless. The video material is timeless, and it helps you project your your message even more. And one of the other things I want you to also remember is that focus on your strength when you speak. What is your biggest strength? Because your magic lies in the things that you do naturally and easily and you're passionate about. Yes. Earlier, I was talking about how I walked very late. I couldn't even run in high school. I couldn't do much sport except play tennis maybe, because I just wasn't a runner. But I could talk. I was talking before I don't know, but mom says I talked very early.
Yes, I'm sure you did.
And so your purpose, your life purpose lies in your passion. And your passion lies in the things that you do intuitively without being taught, without being told how to do it. So if you're going to give a speech, focus on that.
Because, and it's also good if you have a buddy or coming in, talk to me, I'd be happy to mentor you, because very often people who have talent do not recognize it as talent because it's so easy.
Yes.
They think, oh, no, I dismissed that because, that's not so, I don't have to work at it. But if that is exactly what you're saying, that may be where your passion is and where it's easy for you. That can also be the carrier that takes you right to that open place and you're at ease and you don't mind to give from there. So do try to get someone to help you with that and mirror that back to you.
Exactly. Now, the other last thing I want us to finish off with is that as a speaker, you become a beacon. You become a lighthouse that projects and amplifies your message into the world. And it's like lighting a fire in other people's hearts. Charlene, I was telling you earlier that when I came up with this idea to start this conference, I knew it was going to be big. I knew I wanted to reach 1 million women. I kind of had a fuzzy idea how I was going to do it. But the minute I shared the vision of what this conference is about, I have had women putting up their hands in different locations, different countries, saying, I want to bring this to my location. I want to bring this to my village. And it has totally blown me away in terms of the magnitude of this conference. I could never have dreamed that in 3 weeks, I would have 250 locations where somebody is saying, bring it here, I will lead, I will chair, show me how to do it.
Yes.
So I was able to share the vision that I had. People got it. I simplified it so much. A conference with 100 speakers, and every speaker has to sell 10 tickets to bring people to the event. So we have 1,000 women at each event, times 1,000 locations is 1 million women connected in the first year. People get it. It's so simple. I managed to dumb it down to a point where everybody got it and they can see the possibility of it. So we are looking for the diamonds in the rough. I keep saying this. We are looking for those women who have never spoken. And I can see that I have a few males listening in. Philip, I know you're in the United States. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. We're looking for male speakers as well. One of the problems with a lot of women's movements is that we get together, we talk to each other, we talk to ourselves, and we don't involve our men folk in the dialogue and the conversation. So if there are any men out there who would like to come and speak at the HerStory Women's Empowerment Global Conference, inbox me. We would love your participation. The majority will be women, but we are allowing a certain percentage of men to participate as well. And this was actually brought up by a young man who said to me, Gertrude, I want to come and speak about my mom. Because if it wasn't for my mother and my grandmother, I would not be the man that I am now. So please share that with your communities as well. Now, we keep ending these webinars with questions. Now, Charlene, is there anything else you want to add before we open up the floor for questions?
I think just to go back again and encourage people to understand that their gift is so important to the world and that you change the world when you change yourself by giving that way. You just think you're not doing very much. That's not true. You're changing the entire world by doing something like getting up in front of a group of people and giving, being willing to give your gift.
And I've always said that we change the world through our stories. And because
Mhm.
I come from a culture of storytellers,
Mhm.
storytelling has been a very, very powerful part of my very being. I grew up with a grandmother who could hold you in the palm of her hands with her stories. And the world does change in the sharing of stories.
Does.
So let's open up the floor. If anybody has any questions about speaking on stage, about participating in the conference, please pitch in. This is now your time to connect with us. And Charlene, I want to thank you again for taking the time to do these 2 webinars with me.
Thank you. It's been a great opportunity, Gertrude, truly.
And
I've
for
enjoyed
those
every.
of you who don't know, we only met a few hours ago. And
Just
when I
so.
suggested it and you said yes, I knew you were definitely from my tribe. You didn't hesitate to come online and do 2 webinars back to back with me. I don't get to meet many people like you, so I have to thank you for what you've done for the community today. This has been absolutely awesome.
Truly, truly honored, and I've enjoyed every minute. Knew I would, and I'm just very happy. So thank you.
And I know that you are one of the mentors who is coming on board to coach, to support people with both the writing of your books and the telling of your stories. And I will put your link in the chat when we finish. Dorothy, thank you so much. Dorothy said, great tips, landed well. Thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning back in. This has been awesome. So we will finish off this webinar here. I have to go and take a little bit of a rest before I do the next webinar in an hour's time. So I'm going to be back with another fascinating lady, a very good friend of mine who is actually based in California. And because each of our locations is trying to fundraise for the conference, we decided that we would do a webinar on ideas on how to get sponsorship. A lot of you are going to need to raise money in your various locations. How can we get sponsorship in your various locations to help support the conference? That's going to be the next webinar in an hour's time at 4 o'clock my time. So wherever you are in the world, I'm going to be back online, just going to take a break, rest my voice, maybe find a different location, and I'll tune in back in again in an hour's time. If you have any questions, inbox me, email me. If you haven't signed up for the conference, or if you know a woman who has a voice, who has a story, who needs to be heard, please give her my contact details, get them to register. We are looking for professional and non-professional speakers. We will groom you, we will mentor you, we will handhold you and get you on stage and help you have fun with this and maybe start a new career as an author and a speaker and go out into the world and travel and see this magical world that we live in. Thank you so much, Charlene. Until you and I connect again, it has been an absolute honor. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
Bye.